to all my dear students, those who are enrolled for first PUC and class 11 PCMB. Here we are going to start the bridge course for first PUC and class 11 PCMB in the subject biology. In the subject biology in class 11 as well as first PUC, we have 5 different units. Among them, the first unit is diversity in the living world. In this particular unit, we have 4 chapters. Chapter 1, the living world. Chapter 2, biological classification. Chapter 3, plant kingdom. Chapter 4, animal kingdom. Today we are going to discuss about the chapter, the living world. As you go through the name of the chapter is the living world. It shows a particular word, living. So let us see what is living. Objects or things that have life are considered as living things, and objects or things that do not have life can be considered as non-living thing. So what makes the living and non-living things be distinguished? So living things as well as non-living things, they are mainly distinguished by the characteristic feature that is that have life and that do not have life. So what is life? Though it is somewhat difficult to define in a satisfactory way about the term life, but it is somewhat easy to recognize it. By recognizing life, we can distinguish the living things from non-living things. So living things usually has certain characteristic features or unique characteristic features which make them different from non-living things. Let us see what are those characteristic features that makes the living things different from the non-living things. So these are some of the characteristic features of living beings. They are growth, reproduction, cellular organization, metabolism, consciousness. So these are some of the characteristic features of living beings that we are going to study in this chapter, the living world. First, let us discuss about the term growth or the characteristic feature growth. All organisms exhibit growth. It may be unicellular or multicellular. Growth can be defined as a permanent increase in the size of a cell or the size of an organism. The size of an organism is mainly increased by a type of event that takes place in an organism that is known as cell division. Usually, plants grow continuously throughout their life, whereas animals grow only up to a certain age. After that certain age, the animals do not grow, but still cell division occur in these animals or organisms, mainly to replace the lost cells. Next, let us move on to the second characteristic feature, that is reproduction. Reproduction is another characteristic feature of living being. Reproduction can be defined as a biological process where the organisms give rise to their young ones which are similar to itself. So this biological process is termed as reproduction. Reproduction are of 2 types. They are asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction where only a single parent is involved, whereas sexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction where 2 parents are involved. So, we can consider asexual reproduction as uniparental mode of reproduction, whereas sexual reproduction as biparental mode of reproduction. In reproduction, as I told, there are 2 different types. They are asexual reproduction as well as sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, there are various modes. Some of those modes of asexual reproduction are budding, fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation as well as vegetative propagation. Even though the organisms or the living beings have characteristic features of reproduction, there are certain organisms that cannot reproduce. For example, mule and worker bees cannot reproduce. So even though they cannot reproduce, they are living organisms. So generally, we cannot consider growth as well as reproduction as defining features of living beings. Let us move on to the next characteristic feature, that is cellular organization. As we all know and we have studied from our lower classes that cell is the unit of life and all organisms are made up of cells. The organisms might be made up of a single cell or they might be made up of more than a single cell. So based on the number of cells present in an organism, the organisms can be categorized into unicellular or multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms, as the name indicates, uni means single. So unicellular organisms are those organisms which are made up of single cells. And this single cell has got all the necessary characteristic features so that it can perform its function. All cells have various cell organelles and in each cell organelles specific functions are carried. Next, coming to multicellular organisms. In multicellular organisms, the organisms are made up of more than one cell or they are made up of many cells. Many cells indicate it might be hundreds of cells, it may be thousands of cells or sometimes lakhs or millions of cells. If an organism is made multicellular or if it is made up of many cells, then the cells are organized in such a way that they can perform specialized function. All the cells in a multicellular organisms are grouped in such a way that they form tissues. Tissues are grouped to form organs are grouped to form organ system, and organ systems are grouped to form an entire organism. Next, let us move on to the next characteristic feature, that is metabolism. Metabolism can be defined as the sum total of chemical reactions that takes place within a cell or within the body. Metabolism can be categorized into two types. They are catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is a type of metabolic reaction where complex substances are broken down into simpler forms. For example, the metabolic process that takes place within our body, that is respiration process. So during respiration, you have studied in your lower classes that during respiration, a molecule of glucose within the cell is broken down into simpler forms. Glucose has a chemical formula of C6H12O6. It will be broken down into simple substances like carbon dioxide and water. Let us discuss about one more type of metabolic process, that is anabolism. Anabolism is a type of metabolic process where simple substances join together to form a complex substance. A best example for anabolic reaction is photosynthesis that takes place in plants. During photosynthesis, simple substances like carbon dioxide and water molecules are utilized by the plants and a complex substance like glucose or starch is synthesized. Next, let us move on to one more characteristic feature of living being, that is consciousness. The term consciousness mainly relates with an organism and its awareness to the environment. So conscious can be referred to as awareness of an organism to the environment or environmental stimulus. Different types of organisms respond in a different way for the stimuli that are present in the environment. For example, plants respond to variety of stimulus like light, temperature, etc. Whereas animals respond in a different way. It may be in the form of movement for various types of stimuli. So during or the type of response given by an organism to the stimulus also varies. Usually we consider the human beings are the only organisms that have self-consciousness. So these are some of the characteristic features of living beings. Let us move on to one more concept under this chapter, that is diversity in the living world. So let us first discuss about the term diversity. So diversity in the living world mainly indicates biodiversity. So term diversity is having different types. Biodiversity is the number or types of organisms present on earth. So we can define biodiversity as the number and types of organisms present on earth. As per the estimation done, there are around more than 5 million species on earth. Even though there are more than 5 million species on earth, we have successfully described about 1.7 to 1.8 million species. Even though there are 1.7 to 1.8 million species that has been already described, it is very difficult to remember the description of each and every organism. So to study all the organisms, it is quite difficult or it is impossible. So to facilitate our study, organisms have been classified into groups or they have been classified into categories. Let us discuss about some of the terminologies that we use in classification. Some of those terminologies are nomenclature, classification, taxonomy and systematics. First, let us discuss about nomenclature. Nomenclature is naming an organism. You know that there are so many millions of organisms that have been identified as well as that has been described. So each and every organism that has been identified and described has given a particular name. But the name of an organism varies by language or it may vary by country to country or it may vary from place to place. So organisms are usually known by their local names in most of the places. For example, the holy plant is named Tulsi in India, but in US it is named as holy basil. The same plant is named in different languages in different names. So it is difficult to remember all those local names. So scientists have standardized a particular name or they have given a standard name for a particular plant so that we can use that name of the particular plant or animal or any of the organism with the single name which can be used all over the world. So this process is known as nomenclature. So we can define nomenclature as the process of assigning a standard name or scientific name to an organism. So when we come across the term scientific name, so scientific name are mainly given for any of the organism to avoid confusion. As I have stated the example of the holy plant Tulsi, it is named in different names in different places as well as in different languages. So to give a scientific name, there is a system and there are certain rules and regulations or there are certain principles and criteria. So let us see the binomial nomenclature. The system of providing a scientific name for any of the organism is known as binomial nomenclature. Usually in a binomial nomenclature, as the term indicates, there are two names or two components in a name. So any of the organism which has given a standard name usually has two words. One is the genus name and the other one is the species name. So these two genus as well as species name together form a scientific name, together gives a scientific name to an organism. Scientific name of each organism has two components or two parts. They are generic name and specific name or specific epithet. Let us discuss some of the criteria and principles that are given by some international organizations for naming an organism. There are certain organizations which have assigned certain principles as well as criteria for naming an organism. They are ICBN, that is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and ICZN, that is International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. So ICBN, that is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, has formulated certain rules as well as principles or criteria to name the plants, whereas the International Code for Zoological Nomenclature has formulated certain principles or criteria to assign scientific name to animals. Next, let us discuss about some of the universal principles that has to be followed while naming an organism, or during nomenclature, we have to follow certain criteria as well as principles. Let us discuss some of these principles. During nomenclature, or when an organism is assigned with a scientific name, usually a scientific name should have two words. The first word represents the genus and the second word represents the specific epithet. The next principle says that the word of the name should be separately underlined and when handwritten, and when typed or printed, it should be in italics. The next rule of universal rule for nomenclature is, as you know, there are two components in a binomial nomenclature or in a scientific name. The first name, that is generic name, should start with capital letter, and the second name, that is specific epithet, should be with small letter. And the scientific name that is given to any of the organism should be either in Latin, or if you collect the name from any other language, then it should be Latinized. Suppose if we are going to add the name of the author, the name of the author should appear at the end of the name in abbreviated form. For example, the scientific name of human being is Homo sapiens lib. Homo refers to the first word, that is genus name. Sapiens is the specific epithet or species name, and lib indicates that the species is first described by Linnaeus. So these are the universal principles or guidelines that has to be followed during nomenclature. Let us see certain other terminologies like classification, taxonomy. Let us discuss about one more terminology, that is classification. Classification is arrangement of organisms in specific groups and categories called taxa. So organisms are categorized into specific groups and categories called taxa, mainly based on certain similarities in their characteristics. Next, let us discuss about the terminology taxonomy. Taxonomy is a process of classifying the organism into different taxa. The study of identification, nomenclature and classification of organism is done mainly based on the external structure, the internal structure of an organism, the structure of the cell, the developmental process as well as ecological information of an organism. So based on these criteria, the organisms are classified into different taxa. Let us discuss about the term systematics. Systematics deals with the study of organisms with reference to identification, classification as well as evolutionary relationship. So we have discussed about 4 different terminologies under classification, under diversity in living world, that is nomenclature, classification, taxonomy as well as systematics. Now let us discuss about taxonomic categories. As I have stated before, the organisms are classified into various taxa. So there are various taxonomic categories in which we can classify an organism. So first let us discuss about taxonomic hierarchy. So taxonomic hierarchy or Linnaean hierarchy is a system of arranging all those taxonomic categories in a descending order. That is, with kingdom at the top as well as the species at the base. So it is a type of sequence of arrangement of taxa. Let us see what are those different types of taxa that are used for categorizing or classifying an organism. There are certain taxa that we use to categorize or classify an organism. They are kingdom, phylum or division, class, order, family, genus and species.